donc à des espaces tertiaires.
Stefan.
Good morning.
Ciao Pietro.
Ciao Pietro.
Building and configuring the onboard Ethernet network on modern trains is a complex and time-consuming activity. Several hours are often required to properly configure the onboard network and check for proper cabling connections, making the initial network setup
Come
a
vanno le tue
costly
letture
activity.
di
Any action
italiano,
that can be
Stefano?
taken to
Va
reduce
bene, ho
the
appena
time should be
cominciato. Se
encouraged.
una
What
notte
if it were
d'inverno
possible
un
to dramatically
viaggiatore.
reduce setup time
bene, bravo.
and increase
Calvino, è
organizational
stranissimo, è un
efficiency?
libro su leggere
VDS
dei
Rail
libri. Questo è-
TTCMP Network Toolkit makes this possible. Thanks to TTCMP Network
Sto avanzando
Toolkit,
poco a poco.
network engineers can easily and quickly
Okay.
set up the onboard network. All
E per
consist
sopravvivere
Ethernet
nella mia
switches
vita ho
are
letto anche il
automatically
contesto.
configured from a single network project
Toto modo.
file shared among all
ho
switch
capito.
nodes,
Sì, capire un po'
accelerating
meglio
commissioning time.
che succede.
Network engineers use the TTCMP Network Designer Graphical User Interface to define the network project in a single plug-and-play profile. This network project profile is then exported in a file and shared on the network. Field engineers use one of the TTCMP tools to introduce the network project profile into one of the consist switches residing on the network. TTCMP services automatically distributes the network project profile to all switches. Every switch composing the network receives its own configuration by extracting it from the project profile file. All switches are automatically configured and become fully operational in a matter of minutes. The same procedure can be applied to replicate the same network configuration on each fleet vehicle composing the consist. When the train is fully operational, TTCMP Network Toolkit can be used to monitor and troubleshoot the consist network. TTCMP Services continuously checks that the current network is reflecting the proper project profile. If not, an error notification is displayed. In the event of a device failure and replacement, TTCMP Services plug-and-play functionality detects the replaced switch and automatically updates and restores the project profile configuration, dramatically reducing network and vehicle downtime. VDS Rail TTCMP Network Toolkit ensures significant time and cost savings in each phase of the onboard network implementation and commissioning. To learn more about VDS Rail TTCMP Network Toolkit, visit our website at www.vdsrail.com or send us a request email to sales@vdsrail.com.
c'est ça.
With all the complexities of the EU, national and international legislation, funding and advocacy, running a successful company in Europe is complicated. There's an easy way to make sure your company's concerns are being heard. Become a member of UNIFE. Get access, influence and visibility where it counts. Starting with a direct line to the decision makers creating regulations that shape our industry's future. UNIFE gives you the intel you need to access many funding, research and partnership opportunities available. We provide you with all the latest information about the rail industry. UNIFE has dozens of committees and working groups to help guide our members through our advocacy strategy and share best practices around a wide range of topics. You'll also get fantastic speaking, networking and sponsorship opportunities with key partners, potential clients and decision makers in our sector. With over 100 members, we fight for more business opportunities for European rail manufacturing companies worldwide. Join us at UNIFE.
We'll be waiting. Toulouse à tout.
Le soir obscurcit la pelouse. Pour l'oiseau, laissons les gâteaux secs. C'est parfait, on repart à Toulouse. Lautrec. Papaya de
Ce site-là, en effet, dès le départ, on l'a identifié comme un site qui présente en effet des atouts qui sont évidents. Hein. On les a vus tout à l'heure au travers du château, au travers ce site industriel. Mais ce qui donne le sens, même par rapport à ce qui existe ailleurs en France, c'est le fait qu'on puisse être raccordé aux voies. Vous l'avez vu, derrière le château, il y a 2 voies qui rentrent sur le site, qui fait que ça peut être un terrain de jeu extraordinaire, nous disent les centres de formation.
Un terrain de jeu situé à Saintes, en Charente-Maritime, en lieu et place d'une partie du technicentre SNCF actuel. Au total, la région Nouvelle-Aquitaine a récupéré 14 000 m² de foncier bâti pour impulser l'installation d'un campus du rail. Ferrocampus sera dédié à la mobilité ferroviaire durable, connectée, autonome et décarbonée.
Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, si vous voulez bien rentrer dans la salle de conférence.
Ferrocampus est avant tout un projet innovant qui s'articule autour de 5 domaines. Le verdissement des matériels roulants, la sécurité et la connectivité embarquée, la signalisation et la maintenance des portées, les transports intelligents du futur en intégrant bien sûr du digital mais aussi de l'intelligence artificielle, l'innovation et le développement d'activités économiques dans le secteur ferroviaire.
On est
trouvera des activités qui sont à la fois des activités de formation, à des espaces tertiaires, réhabilités, des salles de cours concrètement. On y trouvera des espaces de formation plutôt industriels et longs d'un travail de réhabilitation, un marché public, avec le choix de l'architecte, avec là aussi un point important qui est la définition du programme. Qu'est-ce qu'on veut faire concrètement dans ces bâtiments? Qu'est-ce qu'on veut construire pour répondre à ces enjeux-là? Et ça prend forcément un peu de temps. Donc on se dit que sur 2025, on devrait être...
Before the introduction of ERTMS, trackside signals and proprietary automatic train protection systems controlled and protected the movement of trains on railway networks across Europe and the world. Today, ERTMS Level 2 takes rail safety to a future-proof situation through the introduction of ERTMS Level 2 Baseline 3. A harmonized and safe digital signaling system that considers the actual position of all trains. ERTMS improves the rail sector's competitiveness and helps to level the playing field with the largely unregulated road transport sector and offers significant environmental gains. 1. Up to 40% capacity increase on existing lines when accompanied by other infrastructure and system improvements. For example, traffic management systems, and therefore a greater ability to respond to growing transport demands. 2. Higher reliability and punctuality rates by having a fully redundant train control system on the conventional railway. 3. Reduced maintenance costs, as ERTMS Level 2 reduces the quantity of installed trackside systems and materials. 4. Interoperability between suppliers and operators, encouraging a more open supply market. Other benefits include a simplified approval process, lower costs, improved operational performance, not only higher operational speeds, and improved safety for passengers. ERTMS Level 2 Baseline 3 facilitates the delivery of game changers. The vision of the future is embodied by ATO over ETCS, next generation communication systems, satellite positioning, braking curve evolutions, moving block signaling. Trains will actively participate in route protection and have to reliably report their integrity. While the main infrastructure elements of Level 2 won't change, track vacancy detection components will be redundant. ERTMS Baseline 3 helps to optimize train traffic and is currently being deployed in a number of countries. Many other countries are eager to deploy ERTMS to gain from or prepare for the significant benefits.
Toulouse a une spécificité dans ses rapports à l'autre, c'est pas compliqué. C'est brut de décoffrage, quoi. C'est aussi puissant que son accent. Pour moi, ça incarne la ruralité avec toute sa beauté, toute son authenticité. Toulouse est une ville à la campagne. C'est très fort, c'est très présent dans Toulouse, cette campagne environnante qui pénètre dans la ville. Par plusieurs moyens, par les bois qui entourent la ville, mais aussi par les réseaux fluviaux. On a la Garonne, bien sûr, il y a le canal de Midi, on a le canal de Brienne, toutes ces voies d'eau qui font que la ville respire, elle est comme irriguée. Midi-Pyrénées est un grenier immense et Toulouse en est un peu la vitrine. Pour moi, restaurateur, c'est un terrain de jeu fabuleux finalement. J'ai pas besoin d'aller très très loin, j'ai tout sur place. On a la truffe, on a le foie gras, on a la laiton de l'Aveyron, tous ces produits on les trouve ici. Ils viennent, ils arrivent naturellement. Et Toulouse est une vraie porte d'entrée sur de nombreux territoires. D'un point de vue architectural, le Capitole, c'est fort, c'est emblématique, c'est la mairie, mais c'est un peu le joyau aussi de la ville. Quand le soleil vient lécher la façade du Capitole, qui est tournée vers l'ouest, il y a ce rose qui devient évident. On est dans la ville rose. Sincèrement, c'est impressionnant, c'est majestueux. Il y a des lieux qui sont vraiment très forts. Moi, le cloître des Jacobins, bien sûr, c'est un cloître et il y a un magnifique festival de piano, la piano jacobin, c'est magistral. Mais Toulouse a aussi une spécificité, elle a plein d'hôtels particuliers avec des cours intérieures. Il y a l'hôtel d'Acésa, qui est un des plus beaux, des plus connus, mais il y en a une cinquantaine, je crois. force de Toulouse, c'est une force, c'est cette industrie qui est un des joyaux de l'industrie européenne, c'est Airbus. Pour moi, c'est le poumon de la ville d'Airbus. Quand on est adopté par la ville, on doit adopter le rugby. Quand Toulouse gagne un bouclier de Brennus, c'est, même s'ils en ont gagné des dizaines, j'ai envie de dire, c'est un événement important. Et quand les joueurs, en place du Capitole, brandissent le Brennus, c'est toute la ville qui est présente. Et franchement, moi, ça continue à me filer la chair de poule. C'est une telle fierté. C'est un vrai besoin de faire la fête ici. C'est un vrai besoin de sortir, de se retrouver autour de quelques tapas et avec un petit verre de fronton. La nuit passe et il fait beau. À Toulouse, il y a toujours eu une école autour de la musique et du chant. C'est très présent. L'orchestre du Capitole, ça fait partie des richesses de la ville. C'est un orchestre qui brille depuis des années. Aujourd'hui, on a la chance d'avoir un chef comme Tougan Sokiev, qui est un jeune chef extrêmement prestigieux et brillant. Finalement, c'est une ville où on vit sereinement, on mange bien, on s'amuse, on fait la fête, on écoute la musique. C'est ça, Toulouse.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this sixth edition of the Senelec workshop ICT for Train, now ICT for Railways. I am very happy to welcome all of you in this workshop, and I am happy to see that despite the difficult times, I see a lot of you here. Some people could not come physically here. They will present or attend the workshop through the web, but we will do our best as in the past to have a very interesting journey through the most innovative concepts in the railway sector. And I wish to thank all the people who made this possible, and first of all our host organization, Totem Cluster, and I give the floor to Mr. Pascal Penn, who is Rail Vice President of Totem Cluster. Please, Pascal.
Thank you, Paolo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear railway colleagues. I am very happy that ICT for Railways has chosen Toulouse for the 6th edition. Thank you very much. As the Vice President Railway of the cluster Totem Cluster for the safe and smart mobility in Occitanie. Perhaps if you can put the other slide. Thank you. Just a few words about Totem. Totem is a cluster. We bring together 128 players, companies, industrial companies, but also engineering companies for railways, automotive and maritime sectors, with a particularity is 65% of small and medium companies. It's very important because for the innovation is a real very key point. We participate, we are members of several national federations by sectors, PFA, CNPA, FIF, Railway Industry, French Industry Federation. And globally, we have several main goals: business, of course, but also innovation, skills and training, and at the end, attractivity for the railway activities. The main point is every company in Totem works from the beginning on the added value chain before sales, for example, for selecting companies for big players, but also for working about specification. And after, it's possible, of course, to develop with several companies equipment, devices, manufacturing, and after services, maintenance, and application and systems. The goal today is to discuss with you about innovation, about standardization and regulation. In France, the recovery plan and especially the PIA number 4 select several main points: ecologic transition and decarbonization, health protection and safety, new technology for performance and competitiveness, future rolling stock, light rail and new shared mobility, and robustness and adaptability, for example, with a digital solution. For this innovation, Totem, the main targets for innovation for Totem is in compliance with the main national plan, with hydrogen, battery, and hybrid or electric traction, because we have an excellent center of Alstom who works on this subject in Tarbes, in this region, but also a lot of small subsidiary companies and so on. The second point is the history of the region, with the electronic for aerospace, for avionics, but also for aeronautic and railways, is electrical and electronic architectures, and of course at the end system and devices for electronic embedded system. And the third point, but not the least, the digital technology and data management, because actually for this solution it's necessary to manage data, to manage digital technology. Okay. Another point, very important, is the link between the operators and the region, because if we can find a solution for innovation, it's necessary to check, to verify, to test on demonstrator, experimentation, on real situation. And for this, it's necessary to work together with SNCF, for example, in France, with Alstom and so on, with the urban operator also, for find the best solution and the good performance at the end. Totem, what is action? In fact, we developed several solutions. We organized meetings, several events with big players, but it's very important to meet small and medium companies with the big players. And in fact, at the end, of course, we participate the main events, exhibition, and so on for railway sectors. For example, ICT for Railways today, but ITS in Toulouse in next May, CFAIR all the 2 days in Lille this year, and in 2 years also, High Industry Meeting in the north of the France, and the main exhibition for railways in September 2022 in Berlin, in Trans, is the main exhibition for our sector. Just the last words. In fact, we are working with several big players, Alstom, SNCF, RATP, but also at the international in Morocco with ONCF, for example. And in fact, the volunteer and the action for international targets in Germany, in north of Europe, in Italy, in Morocco, and so on. We organize several meetings and events with every company of Totem. Several big players do trust us. For example, a lot of companies, main company, big players is made in the slide. It is very important to manage the link between small and big players, small companies and big players. It's a big goal for Totem. So, it's necessary to finish. Just welcome another times, once again, in Toulouse, in the big city, and good workshop together.
Thank you very much, Pascal.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for hosting this event. And now we have a connection via web with Mr. Pietro Marmo, who is the chair of Senelec TC9X, and so the promoter of this workshop. If
Paolo, can you hear me?
if we have Pietro, I don't know.
Paolo, can you hear me? Paolo?
Pietro,
Yes.
it's your
Pietro?
turn. Please
Can you
speak.
hear me? Okay. Guys, can you hear me?
Pietro,
Yes, we
do
can
you
hear
hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Pietro.
Paolo, can you hear me? Can you hear me there?
Speak a bit louder.
Can you try to speak a bit
Paolo,
louder
can you hear me?
and to take over with your presentation?
Paolo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Can you show yourself with the webcam?
yes, I actually am showing myself. I don't know if you can see me.
Okay. No, we don't see, but you can start. In the meantime, we will see you.
Yes. Sorry for this remote connection. Just few words to welcome this conference. Why Senelec is promoting such a conference? We believe in the competition in railway sector, but the competition has changed a lot in the last years. Before we had competition inside different nations. Then the competition has been extended to different nations, to continents, and globally all around the world. Now with the mobility as a service concept, the competition is extended to the different transportation systems. So the railway sector is competing with the airplane, probably with the boats, probably with Hyperloop for the long distance. Is competing with bus, with taxis, with shared mobility like bicycle or cars inside the towns. And everywhere we are competing for the most productive market, that is the private cars market, as well as the freight transportation on wheels. So the competition here needs big investment, but big investments needs also safe bases, safe platforms. And here is our role, to define these safe platforms that are standardized, so that when some manufacturers, some companies, some operators invest in some solution in a country, can use this solution in other countries, but even can use this solution in other transportation systems. For instance, you know that ERTMS can be extended to Hyperloop, but this is not the single example. When mobility as a service will be widespread, we will have this new level of competition. But the standards, in order to be set, needs a new solution be developed by experts, by research centers, public or private. So the CENELEC committees are a place where we can share ideas and we can define all together what are the standards on which we can bet for the future. For this reason also we promote this conference, that is a place where different experts, different entities, different research entities can share their views and share their ideas. For this reason, I welcome and I thank all the people that has come to Toulouse for this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pietro. You really gave the real concept behind this workshop. And now we have a short welcome speech from Mr. Gilles Chopard, who represents BNF, the French national standardization body.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Well, it seems now my turn to extend a short but warm welcome, and I feel sorry to do it from Paris. As you said, my name is Gilles Chopard Guillaume. I'm the Director General of BNF, the French Organization for Railway Standardization. We are proud to be a partner of ICT for Railway 2021, and I'm very pleased indeed to welcome all participants, organizers, and speakers for this workshop in the beautiful city of Toulouse. So you chose France this year. By doing so, many of you probably know this, you chose one of the most active, most contributing country in the world of railway standardization. In fact, more than 360 French experts participate directly in CENELEC and IC activities in the field of railway. They are involved in almost every single European or international working group, contributing on almost every topic, from onboard network to cybersecurity, from fire safety to RAMs, from batteries to energy measurements. I'm glad to note that many French experts will participate in this meeting today and tomorrow, including as speakers, and I would like to tell them, bienvenue à vous. But we are also in charge in France of several secretariats of technical committees and subcommittees in CENELEC and IC, its international counterpart. In fact, in the field of railway electrotechnical standardization, the French committee operates no less than 4 European or international secretariats out of 5. My organization, BNF, was established 26 years ago and is founded by French operators, SNCF and RATP, as well as FIF, the French Railway Industries Association, in order to provide the necessary support on behalf of AFNOR, the French standardization body. BNF is chaired by Mr. Luc Aladier from the French Railway Industries Association, who asked me to offer you, on his behalf, a special word of encouragement for this workshop. We at BNF host mirror committees. We inform and consult French stakeholders to establish national positions. We translate standards, dozens every year. We provide advice and training. Yet, what we are most proud of is probably the assistance we also provide as secretary assistant to support the excellent work of Mr. Denis Millamico, the French secretary of both CENELEC TC9X and ICTC9, under the outstanding leadership of Mr. Pietro Marmo at CENELEC and my friend Giannisvaldo Fadin at IEC. A look at this workshop program confirms, if need be, that these 3 distinguished officers, Denis, Pietro, and Giannisvaldo, are deeply involved in today's workshop. They deserve already our heartfelt thanks. Talking about the workshop program, I must say that I'm impressed by the wide range of topics that will be addressed by so many world-class experts. With such promising program, I have great expectations, and I'm not the only one, of course. Notably, let me tell you about Mrs. Nathalie Baumier, Mrs. Baumier is a top manager of RTE, the operator of the domestic high-voltage power transmission grid, which is, by the way, the largest one in Europe. Mrs. Baumier is also the chair of the French Electrotechnical Strategic Committee at AFNOR. She wanted to welcome you too, and she asked me to convey this message to you. The electrotechnical community, she told me, needs to develop standards that are machine-readable, at higher speed and with more agility. But, she said, whereas digital twins and simulations are becoming inescapable in all fields, we must also secure, more than ever, the openness and the interoperability of dedicated data models. That kind of interoperability is becoming the cornerstone of standardization. Well, interoperability is an old demanding word in the field of railway, but it has here a wider, much wider and still demanding meaning. So the message is clear, it is simple and strong. While setting standards, let's make sure to build bridges between industries, not barriers. Could there be a better place than Toulouse, Europe's capital city of aerospace and aeronautics, to share the vision with Europe's leading experts of the railway sector? Well, I guess not. So thank you for choosing Toulouse, thank you for choosing France. On behalf of BNF and the French Electrotechnical Committee, I wish you all a successful and inspiring workshop.
Thank you very much, Gilles. And now another welcome speech from our platinum sponsor, Ferrocampus, and I invite the CEO of Ferrocampus, Mrs. Séverine Regnet, to say some words.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here today to share with you the strategy of the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine. Ferrocampus is the name of an overall program based on railway. The ambition of the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region is to increase by 2 the use of railway in its area. But to get this goal, we have to make the global railway system sustainable, meaning decreasing by 30% the OPEX and the CAPEX, to increase also the lifetime of all the assets, I mean infrastructure and also railways. And the other point is, even if railway is the most ecological means of transport, it's not enough, and we still need to work on decarbonization. So this is the main target. As you can see, the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region belongs 204 trains, and we have a network of infrastructure which is quite huge. This is not the point, but as you can see, there are different colors in this network. The green is just to show that the network is in a complete good shape. And as you can see, the overall infrastructure is in a very bad condition. As a result, we have decided to invest 1.6 billion euro to renovate the infrastructure. But as you can see, the overall goal cannot be achieved with regular solution the way we are working today. So the reason why we are here today and we are sponsored to this workshop is we think that we have to find new solutions to get this goal. And we think that Nouvelle-Aquitaine is not the only one region in Europe to need such kind of results. So with Ferro Campus, we have decided to help increasing the speed to put innovation to the market. So one of a problem we heard from companies was to have experimentation in real conditions. So starting next year in September, we will have 2 trains to make some experimentation. One supposed to have a regular transportation, let's say, activity with passengers, so no huge innovation in it, maybe just observation of infrastructure, or maybe geolocalization, or other experimentation in real condition. The other one, we can make more invasive innovation, such as changing the system, the powertrain system. We offer also the possibility to make experimentation on lines, and we have a digital data strategy. We can put some capture to collect data required in your activity, and then to provide it to you to accelerate the engineering of new solution. And then, as we are a region which use this new solution, we want to make a picture of the deployment of your solution in our area. So from engineering to experimentation to deployment on the region, we are very interested by any innovation allowing us to meet the goal. We are on the right hand, you can see all the topics we are interested in. To be simple, we are interested in all the ecosystem of innovation which could lead to multiply by 2 and to have a sustainable and more decarbonized railway solution in our territory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Severin, for this very interesting introduction. Now we enter in the panel 1 of our program, and first of all we will have a short introduction from Mr. Gian Osvaldo Fadin, who unfortunately could not come here, but he will say a few words through the web.
Okay, Paolo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Paolo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, I was supposed to be in Toulouse, but this was not possible for me. It's really a pity, because I love Toulouse really very much. You know that ICT for Trains is an initiative that was born many years ago in China. We were in China, in Changsha, for a standardization plenary meeting of ICTC 9, and during the evening, having meals, we were discussing around the table on the possibility of organizing a workshop dedicated mainly to innovation. Normally, innovation seems to be a word not so normal for standardization, because Many people are thinking that standardization is arriving when the state of the art is very stable. But this is no more true in a world that is running very fast, is continuously changed, where technology is continuously having innovation. So to deal with innovation is a must for standardization, and we have a very nice example in which standardization was able to standardize technology that were not yet state of the art. This is the main spirit of ICT for Trains. I have participated to the preparation of this 6th edition, and so I think that you will have really a view of what is the digitalization for railway, with some example as the introduction of artificial intelligence or digital twins, or as it is ongoing now, the digital automatic coupler, for having an innovation in the composition of the freight trains. In this case, the introduction of massive digitalization is bringing the advantage of new services and new capabilities, but on the same side is bringing the problem of possible cyber attack. And so cybersecurity will also be something that has to be introduced into railway. Let me say also that, as it was said by the speakers speaking before me, that energy efficiency is also a very, very important aspect, and this aspect is also addressed in this workshop and addressed by standardization at the international level and at European level. I repeat that really I regret not to be with you in Toulouse. I was thinking how to solve the problem, because historically I was always moderating the panel 1, and let's say that the solution was quite easy, because I inform you that at the end of March 2022 I will finish my term as chairman of ICTC9, and my successor will be my friend Paolo Bozzolo. He is maybe well known by you, because he was formerly the chair of TC9X, and he was the chair when ICT was started. So I leave the floor to Daniele, and I leave to him the task to moderate the panel 1, which for sure will bring you a vision of which is the direction in which the railway is going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gian Osvaldo. Now we go on. Please, I invite Daniele Bozzolo to moderate this panel 1, and it will be again a mixed mode panel where some people are here. I welcome, for example, Mr. Philippe Citroën. If you wish to have a seat here, please, Philippe. And also Mr. Libor Lokman from Czech Railways, former Director General of CR, and Mr. Evangelou, Jean-Michel Evangelou from UIC. And from the web we will have two persons from the European Commission, DG Move, Leonardo Don Giovanni and Wolfgang Persch, and a representative of Shift Rail, Judith Sandor, and also we were expecting to have Guido Di Pasquale from UITP, but unfortunately Guido is ill at the moment, and it was unexpected, so he could not find a replacement in such a short time. But I'm sure that he will listen to this panel, at least. So, please, Daniele, you can go on.
Thank you, Paolo. Good morning to everybody. My name is Daniele Bozzolo, even though actually Gian Osvaldo before said Paolo, but that's okay. Probably it was confusing the two of us. Good morning. I have the pleasure this morning to be the moderator of this panel number one. I guess that we need to be done by some logistic things. We need to be done precisely by when, Paolo?
No, we start with the DG Move.
Yeah, I know, but here is...
Leonardo Don Giovanni.
Sì, sì, no, qui c'è buffet 12:30, sì, d'accordo. E per che ora dobbiamo finire noi?
Dobbiamo finire, sì, intorno alle 12:30, un po' prima.
Ah, quindi abbiamo quasi 2 ore?
Sì.
Ah, perché non so, mi ha detto 1 ora.
Ma facciamo...
Ah, ok, d'accordo. Ok, sorry, just...
Uno fa una breve presentazione.
Okay, okay. So we move on, sorry. The first one on the list is Mr. Leonardo Don Giovanni. Do we have him on?
Yeah,
okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we do, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leonardo Don Giovanni, and I represent DG Move Unit C4, dealing with safety and interoperability. And I will have a joint presentation with my colleague Wolfgang Persch, who is our innovation expert. And so you will have a presentation with two voices from DG Move. I had prepared some slides which were on the screen a few moments ago, but I have seen them disappearing now. So if you can put them on again, I can start. Yeah, thank you. And if you can move to the next one, please. So I will start by setting the context. We were asked to, in this panel, to address the point on the competitiveness of the rail sector. And here the point is what DG Move is doing to address the competitiveness of transport as a general point, and rail in particular. So in that respect, the starting point is the European Green Deal, which the Commission put forward in December 2019. And this had quite ambitious targets in terms of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, so notably 90% from the transport sector. And also, this is in 2050 with the 1990 as baseline year. And also the ambition to make the EU as the first climate neutral continent. This responded, of course, to the so-called climate crisis, so the need to address climate change, which was and still is a top priority. But then, of course, this came in December 2019, and as you know, a few months later, a major event came, and it's the COVID-19 pandemic. And in a way, I think we all had to adapt our objectives, our priorities, and our strategy. And the fact that we are having a hybrid meeting today is demonstrating this. As a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, which to some extent is still on, transport was one of the hardest hit by the effects of the pandemic, basically with reduced traffic. And rail in the transport context was also hit quite hard. I think one point we should never forget is the fact that it's true that there were and there are still economic consequences from the COVID pandemic, but we should not also underestimate the role that rail and the other modes had to fight the pandemic, especially in the first part of the lockdown. Well, not to fight the pandemic itself, but to fight the negative effects of the lockdown. So rail was, for example, useful and instrumental to transfer a lot of medical equipment from one point to the other of Europe. And this also put rail in the spotlight as a key transport mode in Europe. As a consequence of this, we agreed on the fact that we needed to ensure that European transport could recover and be resilient, and the effect of this is the so-called strategy for sustainable and smart mobility, which was put forward by the Commission in December last year. And if we can move to the next slide, we have some objectives for rail in mobility strategy. So first of all, to double high-speed rail traffic by 2030 and triple by 2050. Rail freight is also an important element, and I'm also pleased that in the introduction, Gian Osvaldo mentioned the digital automatic coupling, which is one of the key areas where we are active. And the idea, the objective for rail freight is to increase by 50% by 2030 and 200% by 2050. And another important thing is that the process of internalization of external costs should be finalized by 2030, which should then allow rail to finally compete on a level playing field with other transport modes, notably with road. And this is also ongoing. These are the main elements related to rail in the mobility strategy. And if we move on to the next slide, we can see that 2021 was an important year for rail, especially because it was the European Year of Rail. Well, the next one is a visual slide. We had the European Year of Rail during this year, as you all know, I'm sure. And in this respect, during the month of September and October, we had the so-called Connecting Europe Express, which was a train which had a long journey across Europe, across almost all European member states, and was, of course, meant to promote the European Year of Rail and to reach out to basically every corner of Europe as a promotional exercise. At the end of the journey, we also took the opportunity to take some lessons learned from the Connecting Europe Express. So we can call it as a rolling laboratory of the single European railway area. We have a lot of lessons learned from it. Some positive elements, as I said, that the train was welcomed basically by everyone in every corner of Europe. We felt a lot of support for rail. And also a lot of support for making rail more attractive, for making rail better, and for making rail the preferred modal choice for people. There is also strong awareness in terms of the advantages of rail when it comes to fighting climate change. So all this is the positive aspect from the Connecting Europe Express. There are, of course, also a number of lessons learned when it comes, for example, to safety, interoperability, train drivers. Just to mention a few points, we had issues related to vehicle availability. because of lengthy negotiations due to the costs incurred by respective railway undertakings in Europe. Of course, the quality and aging of coaches is not ideal in all parts of Europe. This is something we have to take into account. When it comes to interoperability, of course, having to cross so many borders created some problems. We say of course, but we should not say it anymore. So ideally, we should try to smoothen this and to make to remove borders for rail. There was also a point related to train drivers, as they had to change in several member states. And also not to be neglected the issue of staff and gender equality. Not let's say the gender issue with relation to train drivers is still there and was also experienced in the context of the Connecting Europe Express. Then in the same spirit, there were issues with the safety certification, which was dealt with. And also in terms of vehicle authorization, what is important is that on many occasions, the train had to enter some member states as a special train, which was a way to bypass interoperability issues, but it's of course not the way a normal train should go from one country to another. So many elements to take on board, to take as an experience from the Connecting Europe Express, but also a way to look forward. And in this respect, I have to say that the experience of the Connecting Europe Express was also useful in the exercise of building the future JU, the successor of Shift to Rail. And some of these elements were taken on board for the definition of the master plan and the program of the future JU. So a lesson was learned in this respect. And to complement this point, I will right away give the floor to my colleague Vavka, who is our expert and will make the transition to the point on Europe's Rail JU, also with regards to the lessons learned on the Connecting Europe Express. So I give the floor to Vavka, who is sitting a few meters from me.
Yes, hello, good morning. It's just to add to the different lessons learned identified by the Connecting Europe Express. It's still the previous slide, in fact, where, so we can go back by one slide, where we basically, having seen all the challenges that the international train faced, we could reiterate the overall challenges that rail faces according to the analysis of the sector itself and those stakeholders that prepared with us the programming of the joint undertaking. And obviously, already our predecessors have mentioned the changing customer requirements, the issue that travel patterns change, COVID affects rail, and will affect it probably for a longer term. We have other transportation needs in relation to freight. We need, in order to serve the Green Deal, increase heavily the supply of services, and so there is a need to improve performance and capacity. The costs are a factor that was mentioned. Rail will also provide a greener solution to transport, but at the same time needs itself to be climate resilient and a more resilient system. And we do face the issue of national systems creating a problem of innovation in an interoperable manner, which we hope is now going to be facilitated through both European standards and jointly prepared with ERA technical specifications for interoperability. Now, we also need to work with other modes of transport in order to ensure a seamless link and hope to, by bringing innovation, improve the competitiveness of the rail supply industry, and that includes the SMEs that are gathered in the various clusters across Europe. So now, what are our policy goals? That I'm passing the floor, and the next slide to Leonardo. Thank you.
Thank you, Vavka. Now, to complete on the sustainable and smart mobility strategy, we mentioned some of the targets in one of the previous slides, but of course, this was not meant to be just a list of good intentions. There were some concrete actions to be taken on the Commission side, and some in the very short term. So if you consider that the sustainable and smart mobility strategy was published in December 2020, the first actions are coming in 2021. There are two which are coming next week. They're expected for the 14th of December. One is the review of the TT guidelines, including high-speed lines and better alignment with the other initiatives, notably TT corridors and rail freight, including also the amendment of the rail freight regulation. And then, as a part of the sustainable and smart mobility strategy, Commission action plan on long distance for cross-border passenger services, which also responds to some of the points highlighted in the Connecting Europe Express. Unfortunately, we cannot have a discussion on these 2 points today because, as I said, these two will be out next week. But I think this will trigger some discussion with stakeholders at the beginning of next year. And of course, here the objective will be to all go in the same direction in the context of rail in general, and trying to make rail more attractive for people and goods to be on board. These are the concrete initiatives, and we foresee this for next week. But someone was even faster because the single basic act for the research partnerships was published on the official journal on the 30th of November, which means that the old shift to rail is now replaced by the new Europe's rail, with, let's say, a mix of continuity and new elements. But again, I give the floor to Vavka to explain some details on this and to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Leonardo, sorry, just to remind you that the time is almost expired. Thank you.
Yes, this is rather for Vavka now.
Okay, so on the next slides, we would like to show you that the joint undertaking is looking to address through various research activities the different challenges that rail is facing, and supported by delivering key innovation in relation to traffic management in order to increase heavily capacity by smarter use of the network. That will be definitely further facilitated through digital and automated train operations that would ensure also the provision of a more modern CCS system, which as a result can allow more frequent operations over the same network, reduce the distance between the trains, and in the end make rail more efficient and hopefully more affordable because of the increased use of infrastructure. Now, we are trying to also develop sustainable and more digital assets in order to increase the life cycle robustness of the different rail assets, increase their lifetime, and also ensure that they can be more swiftly and in predicted manner maintained. The improvement of the rail freight is based on using of the DAC and building software applications on top of it that will even further reduce time that it takes to deliver goods through rail. Now, we had a very interesting introduction by Madame Régnier from Ferrocampus. We are definitely also in favor of better solutions for regional, local lines. There the costs need to be cut very strongly, and I know that other participants of this panel also keep that idea very much in mind. So we hope that the projects will start in 2022 at the end, early 23, and we are looking to have first results, first demonstrators in 2025. So now we can go to the further policies that we have as of 2022, and it's on the next slide. And we are looking into revising the technical specifications for interoperability, indeed to bring many innovations effectively allowed on the market. This is the improved ERTMS. This is finally the DAC and all that it offers. The upgrade of the radio towards FRMCS, and the effective introduction of automated train operations that we are all waiting for. We also try to improve the cross-border services through adapting the train drivers directive, and we are looking for different digital arrangements so that multimodal transport becomes quicker, easier to deal with. Now we'll grasp the opportunity of the European Year of Youth, which is next year, in order to promote train travel among European youth, and that will be our blinking of an eye of a continuation of the European Year of Rail under the disguise of the European Year of Youth. Beyond 2022, we'll stay active. We are trying to make sure that whenever possible, electrification goes forward, but through the joint undertaking and in cooperation with other research activities, we'll go for adding hydrogen and batteries, and no doubt clusters such as Ferrocampus will be definitely bringing forward such solutions. Now, we in 2026 hope to have a very good migration to the digital automated coupler, and that will start a completely new era for freight transport on rail. And another milestone is there expected in 2030 based on the roadmap proposed by the sector itself. Finally, electronic multimodal tickets with all the blows and whistles, which we are crossing fingers will be able to count on. Now, after a very long introduction, we are thanking you and happy to take any questions that you might ask any of the two of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very, very interesting. I was distracted that questions will be posed in the round table at the end, so please stay connected and we will continue with the next speaker, okay? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move to the next speaker that is from Shift to Rail, Judith Sandur.
Yes, good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm very sorry that I couldn't be with you today. It was the plan, but as it was already mentioned before, there are some other circumstances that stopped me to be with you today. But I'm very glad to present the contribution of Shift to Rail, or now it's Europe's Rail joint undertaking, activities that help the competitiveness of the railway sector. And the title of my presentation is The Role of Standardization in Innovation. So I think this fits perfectly to the statement and the introduction that Gian Osvaldo just made in the beginning of this session. So it's good to see that we are all aligned on this matter. So if we go to the next slide, please, to the introduction slide. I think the shift to rail is now known in the sector, so there is no need for introducing it. It's a great instrument to pulling all the European rail research under one umbrella. And it started in 2015. And what we have reached now by 2021, end of 2021, is that 920 million euro was awarded to different projects and activities within the joint undertaking. Also, it's an open organization, so more than 400 participants were contributing to the work of Shift to Rail, of course, including the members, the funding and associated members, who are almost 30. And this collaboration also helping SMEs and research centers to contribute to the rail research agenda. If we go to the next slide, this is showing the program of the joint undertaking. And as the title also says, the railway is a system of systems. So that's why it's important that the performance of the railways is considered system level and not only focusing on subsystems, but considering as a whole in order to make the biggest impact and benefit and the performance gain that rail can contribute to, which is very important when we are talking about competitiveness and improving the rail performance and the rail presence in the multimodal transport environment. So that's why the scope of the Shift to Rail joint undertaking is covering the different subsystems, but trying to cover in a holistic approach. And the activities within horizontal activities that are contributing to the different subsystems, like energy, noise and vibration, or standardization, they are covered in the cross-cutting activities. So what is also important, and what also Gian Osvaldo said in the beginning, that when we are talking about research, then we should also look into the impact on standardization and on the regulatory aspect, and having a common strategy, build a common strategy, because this will help us to ensure a proper market uptake and also to ensure to maintain the competitiveness of the railway sector, the railway industry. Also, when we are talking or looking into the global, globally and not only on Europe. So within these cross-cutting activities, there was one area on that specifically on standardization. So if you go to the next slide, you will see the three main pillars that this activity is focusing on. So first of all, that capitalize and bring value of the Shift to Rail outcomes by contributing to the standardization activities. Also trying to contribute to the regulatory aspects, like closing open point of the TSI, or considering now the TSI 2022 package. The Shift to Rail contributions are there and discussed at the various working group meetings. And also to see how to improve the processes for standardization, because as we know that now the life is very accelerated, and we have to react quickly to the new trends, new technologies and new solutions that are popping up. So it's important that the standardization is accelerated, or the process to standardize is also accelerated and meet the current needs and the current speed of this evolution. So that's why it's important that we also see how these processes can be optimized and ensure that it's following the speed that is required. So now I would like to, if you go to the next slide, you will see the different tools that in Shift2Rail we use in order to support the contribution to standardization. And so you see the three main work streams. So first of all, the first one is understand what Shift2Rail is contributing to with regards to regulation and standards. So this is a collection of information, mapping the activities, mapping what is the standardization needs and opportunities that are coming from the program. And after that, analyzing them, assessing them, and seeing that how these benefits could be implemented and provided to the ongoing or future activities when we are talking about regulation and standards. So this is the first step. And then for that, there is a tool, there is a living document that is updated, that is collecting all this information in order to understand that how the Shift2Rail activities contribute to the regulatory and standardization framework. Then the next point is, of course, coordination, communication. So when we know what is Shift2Rail is going to contribute to, also to make awareness and communicate to the right forums and stakeholders what is coming out from the program. And for this, of course, there is some important forums to mention. Of course, RASCOP and JPCR on the standardization level, and at the regulatory level, the TSI working group meetings, or when we are talking about the ERTMS, the EECT meetings. So here now, what the latest achievements were with regards to Shift2Rail that contributing to the standardization, the preparation of the Commission standardization request, and then also identifying possible inputs to the TSI revision package 2022. And then the third, if you go back for a second, sorry, and the third point is that also alignment. So make sure that the areas and the activities that are coming out are aligned with the timing, with the area of scope of activities that are outside of Shift2Rail. So, and in order to ensure that there are synergies, or if there are misalignments, then ensure that there is an agreement and an early warning or early identification of possible adaptation in order to ensure that there is a full alignment with the sector. So now I would like to go into the details of all these three tools that I have presented. If you go to the first one, so the next slide, sorry, to the next slide, then you will see a visual example of the outcome of the standardization rolling development plan. So this is the collection of standardization and regulatory inputs that are expected from the Shift2Rail program and identified. So here you can see an example at TCMS, and I am also very happy to see that in the program you will have a much more technical presentation done by the Connecta project, so the Shift2Rail experts. So here you see that what is important, that the projects are screened, so there is a better understanding and an assessment what are the potential trends and contribution to standards, then also identifying the exact contribution, the areas, and after that also to see which are the relevant standardization organizations or bodies, and which are the specific working groups or activities where this information and this knowledge can be fed into. So this is very important in order to help the communication and the coordination that will be presented at the next slide. Because of course, it's as we said, if we would like to make, if rail wants to remain competitive and meet the current challenges and needs, then it's important that the standardization paths are also well defined and agreed at a sectorial level. So that's why here there is a process that identifies how shift-to-rail inputs can feed into the standardization flow. And what I would like to mainly highlight is that, which is on the right side of this slide, which is very important, is the communication and the coordination work with the different standardization and regulatory platforms. So here that they are aware what is coming out from shift-to-rail, and based on the input that is provided, if there are already ongoing standardization activities in the standardization bodies, in the working groups of the standardization bodies, then the links are easily defined. But if there are more complex topics, there are new topics which need to be further discussed and further aligned because it's a new topic, or there are no standards yet available, like when we are talking about DAC, it's very important that before starting the standardization, there is also an agreement on what should be done, what should be the scope, and what are the requirements, and have a proper timeline for developing this standard. And for this, it's important to identify some specific working groups that collect all the relevant stakeholders and discuss and come up with a coordinated and agreed standardization path for these new topics as well. If you go to the next slide, you will see that there were already some workshops organized. Either they were launched by the joint undertaking, but there were other areas. If you go back, please, I will speed up. So some of them were launched by the joint undertaking, but some other ones, like if you see on the slide with regards to ticketing, this was launched by the Senelec working groups in order to have a coordinated approach. And here Shift2Rail joined this discussion in order to ensure that the inputs and the scope of the work are fully aligned. So this is important when we want to ensure that the standards are developed at the right time and the right place. So, and today I am very pleased to see in the agenda that there are quite a lot of Shift2Rail presentations, mainly in the digital panel, but also in other areas. So this shows that this coordination work and this alignment is working well, and there is an awareness on the activities and the work carried out in the joint undertaking. So if you go to the next slide, please, then I'm going to talk about the future that is already mentioned by Leonardo and Vafka. So that the new joint undertaking, Europe's Rail JU, entered into force on the 30th of November. And so this means that now there is this transitional period. Please also bear in mind that the website, the title of the website, the Shift2Rail, is going to change. Also, our email addresses are going to change, or changing. It's now rail-research.europa.eu, and not anymore Shift to Rail. And for such a transition, it's important that we ensure that the lessons learned and the good practices are continuing and taken up by the new entity. So if you go to the next slide, you will see the draft scope of the joint undertaking. As the master plan is still in a draft version, you can see it on the Rail Research Europa website. But what is important and what I would like to highlight here, that beyond the innovation pillar, what is a step change in the new program, that there is going to be the system pillar also introduced. So beyond innovation, there is also focusing on the core and identifying the functional rail system architecture for the future. And this should be a common and a coordinated work done by the whole sector in order to better ensure the interoperability and the evolution of the system in a coordinated and harmonized manner. So here, within the system pillar, definitely the work on regulation and standardization will continue. And that's why what is the important takeaway, that all the processes and guidelines that have been developed within Shift to Rail shouldn't stop when we are now coming to the end of Shift to Rail. It should be taken up, it should be adapted, it should be reused, and should be the starting point for the future rail research, in order to ensure that the good practices and this good work done by these many experts will continue and will further evolve and support to ensure the competitiveness of the railway sector in the future as well. So I thank you for your attention, and I am available also for questions.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you. We will now move on the next presentation from UNIFE, from Mr. Philippe Citron, s'il vous plaît.
Good morning to... Good morning.
It's not working. Yeah,
Good morning. Trying to find the presentation. Do you have the presentation? Microphone, is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, it is.
So good morning to all of you. So it's a pleasure to be here in Toulouse, and it's always weird to speak English in a meeting in France, but that's the rule. It's bonjour à tout le monde. So on my side, I just wanted to say that I'm very happy to be here, and I'm also very happy, if you go to the next slide, to be with the people who represent those clusters.
Do you mind moving here? This one works.
So, good morning again. Just wanted to say that I'm very happy to attend this meeting, because, and especially to be around people who represent Ferrocampus from Nouvelle-Aquitaine or the cluster Totem, because when we make this presentation, it's also important to see who could be part of the next initiatives which will be taken in Europe. So if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to say that UNIFE represents the Rail Supply Industry Association based in Brussels. We, of course, promote European policy. We work on interoperability, and we try to maintain the EU rail supply industry leadership on a worldwide basis. And we also want to help our members to know about what's happening in Brussels and to know how to manage this complicated world in Brussels. If you go to the next slide, you see what are the main priorities, and it has been mentioned during the previous presentation: standardization and harmonization. European rail research will come back on this, but What we can say is that we can be happy because Europe's rail joint undertaking started its activity on the 1st of December, which shows that the Council considered that Shift to Rail was a big success, and you've seen that the money has been spent, that there's been a lot of projects, that a lot of SMEs have been part of the initiative. So that was a very good thing. And we remember with Libor Lockman when he was the CR executive director, it was the first time that the operators, the infrastructure managers, the industry, the clusters were able to work together. So that's very interesting. And then we have also to manage, of course, in an association, public affairs, and to work on IRIS certification, which is the ISO 9001 of the industry. And you know that there are more than 2,000 companies in Europe, in the world, who are IRIS certified. If we go to the next slide, so you have the list of the numbers of our members. You have to know that, of course, we have very close links with the FIF, and I know that some of you are members of FIF, so we are working with 14 national association, but we also cover with the list of companies that you see there, the whole range of industrial companies involved in rail. And what is also important for you to know is that 1/3 of UNIFE members are SMEs. So for us, it's very important. We have a very active SMEs group. If we go to the next slide. So in fact, you have to know, first of all, that in a month from now, France will take over the rotating presidency of the EU for 6 months. It will be a bit complicated because there will be the elections in the middle of this, but still it's also one thing which is important, which means that France will have to push some topics which are important for the industry. And secondly, you have to know that in the past year, during the year, let's say 2021, there were a lot of discussions between the member states and European Commission for the national recovery plans, and you see that a lot of money is available. And what is also very important for you to know, that you have 55 billions approximately of identified rail investment, including urban rail transport. There will be 6 for France. What was quite impressive, I say that to our Italian colleagues, is that out of the 55 billions of euros, there will be 29 billion of euros for Italy. So you imagine Italy will transform all its rail system with such a big amount of money. But still, there will be a lot of money available. So you have to be informed on what's going on in all your member states, and especially in France, because the money is there, and the money has to be spent from now until 2026. I mean that the tendering process must be quite quick if you want to spend the money before 2026. If we go to the next slide, then you have some examples of money which will be allocated in the National Recovery Plan, 29 for Italy, France 5, Romania 4, Spain 6, so that makes quite a lot of money. And if you want to have the information, of course, this is available in Brussels. You can have the examples. All the member states have created a kind of task force for this new budget coming from the recovery plan. So that will be very important, and that will be very important for all our projects, because a big part of the money will be about infrastructure. We were a bit disappointed because there will not be a lot of money out of the 55 for rolling stock, for the modernization of rolling stock, but still on infrastructure, deployment of the RTMS, there will be a lot of money, and that is certainly a very good thing if we want to modernize our rail sector. Now, if we go to the next slide, what is also important that is, in addition to the money which will come to the National Recovery Plan, there will be also money going to the member states, what we call the structural fund. Of course, countries like France cannot have a lot of money coming from the structural funds, because the bit of money is going to the départements d'outre-mer and some regions still on structural funds, but you see that money is there and has to be sent as well, and could be also used in some cases for RTMS deployment and also for the hydrogen trains. If we go to the next slide, this is also one of the most important things which are already mentioned by the a few minutes ago by the people from the Commission who took the floor, is that the European Green Deal has been launched by Madame van der Leyen when she was elected President of the Commission. It was more or less 2 years ago, and for her the hallmark of her policy was about the Green Deal. So we are quite happy, because for the rail sector, of course, as we are only emitting 0.5 CO2 emissions in comparison to the rest of the sector, who is emitting the transport sector is emitting around 25%. So we have a really a good image, and we have to continue our efforts, but still we are in a good position. If you go to the next slide, you have to know that the Commission is putting a lot of pressure on the member states. By 2030, they want a reduction of GHG emissions by 55%, 40% share of energy for renewable resources, and up to 41% reduction of final energy consumption. That means that the effort that we will have all, that will be extremely challenging for us, but still this is a good pressure coming from the Commission. Now, if you go to the next slide, you heard that the Commission has been also discussing about what they call Fit for 55, which shows that these efforts should be made first by the reduction of GHG emission in 2030 by 55, and the objective, you know, is to have a complete climate neutrality system by 2050, which will be also very challenging, but it is a lot of pressure, and it is very good for our sector. If you go now to the next slide, please. You heard about the fourth railway package, which has been put into force already 2 years ago. This is simplification. It was supposed to be a simplification of the system of authorization for the applicants who wants to put who are building a new trains, which would be operable in several countries, if we talk about the rail supply industry. But it is true that for the time being, to tell you the truth, we are a bit disappointed, because the implementation of the fourth railway package is going not very quickly, and we thought at the very beginning that there would be a reduction of cost and time, and we don't see really good examples. And there's been also a very big increase of the fees and charges. So for the time being, of course, we are happy because it simplifies the authorization process, but this fourth railway package still need to be tackle in a different way. So on our side, and the industry still consider that a lot of things have to be done if we want to have this reduction of 20% in time and cost of vehicle authorization. Now, if you go to the next slide, you will see that all the new regime is now implemented in all Europe, which means that once you give another authorization to a train, he will be able to cross the border. So things have been improving, and maybe later on, Libor Lockman, who was in charge of this Connecting Europe Express train, which has been mentioned, could explain a bit what he saw, his experience of what happened with this train, went from Portugal to the Baltic states and then to the Balkans and came back to Paris, because the train arrived in Paris at the very last stop of its journey. Now, if we go to the next slide, you know, it has been mentioned by the Commission that there will be the TSI's revision on the 2022 package. This is also extremely challenging, because you review the whole system, and of course the Commission, together with the member states and the industry, and if you take the operators, the infrastructure managers, and ourselves, are working on this revision. Of course, on our side, we do consider that there are too many revisions, and we would hope that once this revision will be finalized in 2022, because it's about all the TSI, we'll have a bit of time to breathe and to say that the next revision will be in 2027, except maybe for DAC and FRMCS. But for the rest, I think we really need to have a stability, a regulatory stability, because it is quite complicated, especially for the rail supply industry, to follow all these new regulation, and it has quite a heavy cost. We go to now research and innovation. I think we already had a big presentation. Of course, for the industry, investing in innovation, research innovation, it's absolutely essential. And you see that 3.6 of our annual turnover is invested in research and innovation. And you have the mention of high-speed train, ERTMS, automated train metro systems, but we can say that we were really very happy when in 2014 Shift to Rail was adopted by the council, because as I said, it was a good way to put all the people involved in the rail sector to work together. And if you go to the next slide, I think there are lessons learned of the Shift to Rail. It's a first public-private partnership. You have to know that these partnerships are co-financed by the industry, who put 50% of the money, and 50% of the money is coming from the EU. But the SMEs are not investing. The SMEs get full interest, and it's co-financed by the industry and the EU. Secondly, I think there was a critical mass. The technical feasibility was proven at higher TRL, and I think there was also a lot of discussions on strategic approach on the future of Shift Rail. And when we were preparing Europe's rail joint undertaking, we saw that there were already a lot of topics which were already put in the table, which we are going to continue. But still, it was very interesting to have this extremely good experience of Shift to Rail, and we are happy that Europe's rail has been adopted. If we go to the next slide now, I think it's been mentioned a few minutes ago about the innovation pillar and the system pillar. This is a new idea which came from the Commission. We have to be sure that everything will be done in a correct manner between the industry and the Commission on the system pillar, because the Commission thought that it was absolutely essential to define European rail system architecture. So now there are working groups who started working on this topic, and it's also important to see what will be delivered and maintained on the CCS standards and migration roadmap, and also to work on the TSI and a standardisation plan. I think we had a presentation a few minutes ago on this. So the impact expected of Europe's rail, at least for the rail supply industry, is more flexibility and punctuality for passenger freight, improved performance and capacity, reduced cost, harmonized approach to evolution, and greater adaptability. And of course, for us, the most important thing is to be sure that we continue to have a lot of pressure on the competitiveness of the EU rail supply industry with the support of the member states. If we go to the slide, so we will not go into detail because it has already mentioned, but still the working groups are going to start working on this. But what will be certainly very important in Europe's rail is the ATO, automatic train operation, FRMCS, but our friend Jean-Michel will talk on this, and asset managers and DACT, the digital automatic coupler, who could be a kind of game changer for the freight sector, which, as you know, is unfortunately having a lot of problems in a lot of countries like France, even if there is now political ambitions for freight, but still we are very far from where we should be on freight. And if we want to double the freight by 2030, I think we have to start working on this and spend a lot of money to support this sector. So for us, of course, we need to be sure that we'll increase the rail market share and increase, as I say. What is also important is what we put at the very end of this slide, and I'm sure that the clusters are working on this, is the how to attract new talents and the skills. That is, there's a shortage all over Europe. There's a program which has been launched by the Commission called Staffers, where the industry is working together with the operators on skills. And the skills is really, really, really essential if you want to have people working on this. And when you see how much money will be spent on rail in the next 10 years with the National Recovery Plan, with structural funds, with Connecting Europe facility, plus the member state, you really need to find the right people, the right engineers, and that is also very important. And I think that FIF is working on this. Now, I think that's what I wanted to say. The next slide, I think that's all. So I think it was maybe interesting for you to know what's happening in Brussels and what we are doing at our level. And of course, we are at your disposal to help you. And of course, if you want to come to Unify, you are welcome. And thank you very much. I just want to apologize because I have something important to do now. I will be there in the afternoon, so I will not be with you for the round table. I'm really sorry about this, but I will come back later on. But I'm here, and you have my email, and you can ask me any questions. So thank you again for being here, and have a nice debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, thank you again for your quite interesting presentation, also being on time. Thank you. And now we move on to the next presentation, Mr.
Thank you, Daniele. And I would not start, Philippe. I hope that I will not disappoint you or the colleagues here in the audience, that I will not talk about the Connect Euro Express now. Although there have been numerous lessons learned, but if the time allows during the Q&A session, I'll be more than happy to come back to this topic, because indeed there have been a number of issues that it would be good to take into the consideration. But we can go straight to the next slide, because what I really like of this session is the title, which is how to strengthen the rail competitiveness, and what should be the role of the ICT in it. I mean, I'm of course not going to read what you can read by yourself, but essentially the situation of railways has changed dramatically since the 19th century, where we had no difficulties with the competitiveness of the railway, because we have been the mode of the transport on the land. So if you wish to travel as a person or carry the goods, you know, the rail was the only choice that you've had. Today's situation, and you know it very well, is dramatically different. And it's different in the sense that we have lost our competitiveness. And all collectively, and that's what I would like to link now, the previous speeches that have been presented by the colleagues from the Commission, from Shift to Rail, from Philippe as representing the manufacturing industry, they have set the landscape, what is on the political agenda, what technically we need to do. But it's then us to deliver, and that's what I believe needs to be done. So having a good understanding what's expected from us with regards to what we need to deliver and what are the challenges. And the challenges are clearly, if we want to win the market back, we have to have the guys, the ICT leaders, who will be then helping us developing the solutions that can bring us to the much higher cost efficiency of the railway and much higher performance. Those, not to say dreams, but the expectations that we can double the high-speed volumes by 2030, that we can have 2 times more volumes on a freight, or even more by 2050, can only deliver if we will be competitive. And what has been quite natural in the past, and that's why I mentioned in the first bullet point that since the birth of the railways, of course, we had to use the ICT. I mean, information and communication was something without which the railway would not move. Now we need you to help, you know, to make this implementation in a way of the ICT helping us the competitiveness even more by saving the costs. And that's probably what we all have to have in mind. We need to deliver the cheap, performing, cost-efficient technology, which will be highly standardized, which is not going to be customized for each and every railway undertaking or infrastructure manager as we have experienced in the past. It's a huge challenge, because we do not have a homogeneous landscape of the railways in Europe today. We all talk about the single European railway area, but look, in each and every company, each and every region, each and every member state still imposes their own rules. And those rules, of course, go on the cost of the systems. And what you deliver with the good intentions is then somehow twisted and goes somewhere else with a much more expensive result. So for me, those 3 challenges are really essential, and they will not go ahead without your help. We can go to the next slide now. So as I said, that we want, if we want to be cost efficient, we want to be competitive, we really need to produce what has been outlined already when we have been establishing the principles of the fourth railway package under the title of the Single European Railway Area. I have to tell you, I remember it's kind of the anecdote when the fourth railway package has been published, several years back. Then the transport commissioner, but that time Violeta Bulc, said, and now we have delivered the Single European Railway Area, and now we have delivered interoperability. I had to tell you, I almost fall down from my chair, because I said that, sorry, but it's a joke. If you have a political or regulatory framework, you are still, miles and miles from the final result. And the situation today is still demonstrating we do not have the Single European Railway Area. We are simply not there, and we are not there because we are not having the harmonized solutions that would be systematically deployed. Of course, it would be much easier to deploy than a greenfield, but we have to overcome the situations of the national system and really go for the harmonized solution. So harmonized solutions have to be used, harmonized solutions have to be found, and of course then implemented. And not surprisingly, I had to go back to what has been presented, and that's why I don't need to repeat it, by the previous speakers about the role of the Europe's joint undertaking and the role of the European Union Agency for Railways. And we have to work with them in a good connection, because if we want to develop something jointly, so the supply industry with the operators, and if we want to have it somehow embedded in the regulation, those institutions, so the joint undertaking and the agency, so the ERA, has to work in a close collaboration, which is somehow set in the principles of the regulation that has been put forward, but we all collectively have to help them and really accelerate what needs to be done and then put through the TSIs. But of course not only, because TSI is on an interoperable framework. It doesn't deliver everything. So let's go to the next slide, because what has been mentioned of the ARGU is perfectly correct. I mean, Judith said so, Vavka said so, Leonardo, Philippe, everyone talks about that. I mean, quite logically, because this is really a flagship for all what we need to do in the future development of the railway. Working collectively in a close collaboration, and this is what has not been pronounced, so I would say, or highlighted. We have to play a role in the multimodal transport. And from all the angles, not only from the angle of the multimodal ticketing, as you could have seen in one of the previous presentations, but in an entirety. If we want to be more competitive, we will never be competitive just the sole mode of the transport. We have to be competitive in a multimodal transportation chain. And it goes again back to you. If you would have to help us, any of the technology developed in the ICT bubble needs to be done in a way that it will not be rail specific, but it will be something which will be multimodal, enabling us an integration, enabling also the customers to benefit from the efficient solutions across the entire transportation chain in which the rail plays the role. And I have to tell you, although it sounds logical, it's not the case today. We really have customized solution for the railway. We have even the so-called, I mean, you know it probably perfectly, the TAP and TAF TSI setting the specificities for the rail interoperability requirements. But where is the connection with the other modes? I mean, it's nowhere. It's nowhere even in the European Commission or the European legislation, because there is something for the IT systems, but it's mostly for the road. And again, this interface, the link with the rail is only developing now. So please help us also to understand better what we need to deliver in the multimodal context. I will have two last slides, but they are essential. Because, and again that we mentioned, so it doesn't come as a surprise. But if we talk about the competitiveness, we have two big issues. First, we are not competitive as a rail freight. We are losing dramatically. I mean, if you follow the statistics, it's so stabilized in the recent years, but we have now the problem of the changing of the volumes with regards to the bulk cargo, because the coal is less and less transported, petrol will be less and less transported, we'll be losing the market, we have to switch to intermodal. So there is a lot of challenge that we have to cope with, and one of the solutions is this digital automatic coupler. You have automatic coupler more or less around the globe, but none of them is connecting the data. And this is again, the challenge for all of us here. We don't wish to have a solution like we have is the, sorry to call it the bloody ERTMS, that we don't have harmonized ERTMS. If we go for the digital automatic coupler, it must be one harmonized system for the data communication that will help us really to connect to the train of any single wagon that we will have to couple to the train as such. So this is an opportunity, but it is also a risk. If we do not deliver jointly one single harmonized solution, we will again be in a situation that we will be losing the market rather than winning it. So you see the digital applications that are somehow envisaged. None of them is today existent because we do not have this coupler today. But again, without your help, without your support, we will not be able to deliver, and we will fail. And that's a huge risk that it's stayed ahead of us. So it's the digital automatic coupler with no ICT support. No digital automatic coupler is going to exist. And the final slide, regional lines. Where is Severan now? I mean, I miss her because she has been mentioning the importance of the regional lines here in the region. I have to tell you, this is a must. If you are not going to do something very quickly with the regional lines within the next 5 years, we will experience massive closure of those lines in the whole Europe, and a really massive one, because if we are having the problems with or the troubles with the competitivity on the rail freight, what concerns the regional lines, the cost structure of the regional lines and the competitiveness vis-à-vis the road, so the individual car transportation or the buses, is catastrophic. It's catastrophic. So again, there we need to reach the massive reduction of the costs. And those figures that Severan has shown about the 30% of reduction of the capex OPEX, this is perfectly correct. We have to go even lower than that if you want to be competitive vis-à-vis the road. And this is not just, kind of facing the problems with individuals who do take the transport on the roadside. It's also an issue vis-à-vis the competent authorities that are ordering the services from the rails through the so-called public service obligation contracts. They would not be attracted by our services if they can get, 2 buses per one train, or even 3 bus services for one train service only. They said, why would we do so? We simply, forget about the rail, we go for the bus. So, again, we will only be able to achieve this massive cost reduction if implementing the ICT and IT technologies, completely overhauling the way how we manage the regional systems today. More or less everything wireless, no cables, the automated systems. When you look what we have the regional lines today, it's really running the regional lines of the beginning of the 20th century. And if we don't move them massively, as I said, within the next 5 years, we will have a trouble. And that's why I'm happy that we have this component embedded in the ERJU, that it's understood that we really have to facilitate and accelerate the activities in these the flagship projects for the regional line system, that we need to have a collaboration with all those who are really interested in that, like the colleagues of the Severan here. So without that, we will not win. With you, we can. And that's why the ICT-based services, including the customer services in the multimodal environment, again in the multimodal environment, it's really complete must. And I'm really happy that there is an opportunity of having all of you here today at the conference. And now I'm off. that we can enjoy the very same challenge and hope that we will be able to deliver. And that you can take it as even my invitation to what we can jointly do for the regional lines, because we are right now starting building the consortium of those interested in delivering the outcome for the cost-efficient regional lines within the next 5 years. So we are almost most welcome to join our forces. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Libor. I could tell that from the emphasis that you made the presentation, you are really feeling this topic is extremely important. Okay, thank you. Now we move on to the last speaker. Unfortunately, I was told that the Guido Di Pasquale is not going to be present. So we move to UIC, Jean-Michel, please. You go there? Okay.
Voilà. Good morning, everybody. So, next slide, please. Just to see what there is in this package. Okay. So I will start by presenting rapidly UIC. So UIC, Union International of Railways. So I'm sure a lot of people know, but in case. It's an association regrouping the majority, not the totality, but a very big majority of the railways over the world, not only in Europe, but also outside of Europe. So it's more than today, it's something like 250 members because it's an association. So you find in this association practically all the European railways, with some exception that you can count on a hand. And so UIC is now an old lady of 100 years. 100 years this next year. So we will celebrate the centenary of UIC. UIC has been historically a major actor in the development of railways all over the planet, pushing for railways, and that was very interesting. The exchange before about the situation of railways some 50 years ago was exactly different from today, as it was said, of course. And now UIC is focusing, I would say, on three major aspects, because the world is changing, the world has evolved, there is a lot of things. So first of all, continuing to promote the railways all over the world, and the good things of the railways, and also to say when there are some other stuff to improve. The second thing is about having a role on the standardization chain with a role dedicated to specification, that we try to dedicate more and more on specification, user requirements. It's about usage of things. Why are we doing application, new systems, these sort of things? For users. The users are the railways. And so we are concentrating much more on that, and you will see that with some examples. And the third thing is to focus on some specific programs of common interest for the railway sector. So some specific programs, not everything because it's so large, but some very specific programs. And so I will give some examples very quickly today. So you see there in alignment with the thematics of today, design a better future, because this is a motto we have developed for the centenary of UIC. Because all we are speaking about, competitivity, this sort of thing, strengthening the railway, and it's about what? It's about designing a better future, not only for having company more with more customers or more freight or more whatever, but it's above all to have a better future for everything, for everybody. And clearly, the three things we want to push and that we have put at the heart of our activities more and more is about the sustainability, which is a very important thematics, both sense. First, it is a thematics to develop the railway ID. I think it's clear for everybody. But it's also something we have to develop for other reasons. So it's not only an argument, it's also an objective. Okay? Promoting intermodality for two reasons as well. You will have this intermodality, so you have to decide where is the backbone somewhere. And we do think in the railway industry that we can be that backbone, but other things, they can be also that backbone. So we have to be cautious, and we have to prove. There is not only words of love, there is also proof of love. So we have to prove that we are capable to develop this intermodality and the famous seamless connection. And something which is very important, because we do think, we don't like to say it, but we do think that today the customer experience of railways has probably to be improved in a lot of cases, without entering in all the details of all the network, but we have to work on that. So transforming customer experience is global. It's not only automatization, it's not only technical thing, but it's also quality of service in general. So it's not only a question of technology. It's a global thing that we have to do. So all these three things together, after that you will need to make them happen. You have different enablers. I will not enter in the category of social enablers or management enablers, because they are important also. But we'll speak today very quickly on technical enablers, because we from railways by history we are very engineering oriented, so we like technical things, okay? And I like technical things also, so no problem on that. So first thing we discussed about digitalization, automation. That's very important that we do these things, but every time that we are doing this thing, we have to understand that we do this thing not for themselves, but for a result, which is outside of themselves. It's for enhancing customer experience, promoting intermodality, and making a clean energy and clean world. Okay, 5G introduction, which will be the enabler for practically all the traffic management evolution. Could be the regional networks we were speaking about, could be the high-speed networks, whatever, ATO, all these things, level 3, RTMS, TCMS, blah, blah, blah. I have a list, okay? But all for that, you need an enabler, and the enabler will be the 5G. But again, 5G is not an objective in itself. No interest. The interest is what you will do with it, okay? Digital twin, something very important that the railway is discovering this year. That's something that other industries have discovered 20 years ago. We are a bit late on that one. So we have to develop that in order to have a sort of convergence and commonality of thinking and modeling and designing of things. That's an element of convergence. I think that everybody understands that we have to go not for national solutions, but much more for international solutions, which is very important in the world where we are living in terms of cost of ownerships and in terms of management and experience and these sort of things. One of the elements of that is when you design the system, when you control the system, when you monitor the system, is to have a common way of describing them. And this is called digital twin. Artificial intelligence will enter into railways, so there is a lot of experiences all over the world on that, in Europe precisely, on it, the small things with IoTs, with sensors, with a lot of things, with those software, blah, blah. Okay, a lot of things. We have to develop a more consistent view of artificial intelligence. That's one of the difficulties of the railways, is when they have to take on board new technologies coming from the external world, they need to learn on that. They are very good for the things they have developed for one century. They are exceptional for that. But for new technology, they have to take the people, to take the knowledge, to take the market view of it. And that's the sort of things we have to work on. The famous cyber risk at the end, we have to work on it. All that to accelerate the innovation cycle. Next slide, please. There are two bubble boxes, so if you can press. And there is also one green, I think. Okay. Smart backbone for mobility. Okay, that's clearly what we have discussed in the morning in this round table. So I will not enter again into the details. I think it was sufficiently covered today. Next slide, please. What I told you, I wanted to tell you we are not only speaking, but we are doing, as you see, some of the stuff. And I wanted to take 4 examples here of things we are trying to do for the common interest of railways. Okay, the first one, we spoke about it, FRMCS program, a large program for replacement of GSMR, but moreover, enabling the new things of automation in traffic management, in control, in remote surveillance, a lot of things in video application that will come on board in the next future. Okay, a lot of things. Even you cannot imagine what will be the usage of 5G and after the next one. Okay, it's like everything. When you give an enabler on a technology on a market, you have some objective, you develop something, and after users are inventing new concepts. Of course, ETCS will go, ERTMS level 3 will go on that one. Of course, ATO will go on that one. But what I would like to see is other application improving the customer experience and improving the quality of service of the trains, going also on this future enabler. Freight, a lot of things to say. We spoke of the DAC, which is a certain vision of the things. There is a lot of dimensions. This is the difficulty of the railway system. It's a very complex system. One of the dimensions is also the management of the system itself. Do you know that the rail services, the rail management of the system all over Europe is totally different between countries? And so that's a barrier at the entrance of new actors, of new business, of new things. So you have to align the way you operate, the way you manage, the way you treat the information, at least between companies, and how you do open it to the external world, to the famous channel of redistribution of freight, all these sort of things. It's a business, a complex business. Some other industry are much well organized, much better organized than us. And so we have to reorganize that one. And one of the elements is to put together user requirement and at the end applications, computer application, telecom application, whatever you want, but you have to construct all this chain to have a sort of alignment of services, alignment of management between companies in Europe to make the famous SIRA, Single European Railway Area, we were speaking about 5 minutes ago. So UIC is concentrating on that today. It's concentrating on trying to put together a global, what we call a digital freight platform. This acronym means that it's a 12 selected application, very useful for the future to fluidify, to make more flexible the management and the operations of freight. Okay? Passengers. So again, there is a lot of things on passengers. It's about technicality of the rail system itself, about the future automation, about, okay, all that will bring a lot of things for sure. There is also the problem of ticketing. Because if we want to go to intermodality, first of all, we should be capable to have a ticket between France and another country, for example. Okay? We have to make sure that one day we'll be capable to have a ticket which is door-to-door, including taxi, including bus, including whatever. That's precisely what we are working on in UIC. It's OSDM. It's existing today. First element of OSDM, which is international ticketing, is existing. It's all over protocol, but it's more than a protocol. It's a system that many companies start to adopt in all over Europe. That has been developed, of course, with all the railways in Europe. It's very concrete. At the end of the day, it's a tool. Okay? And so the next step will be to increase the tool to other channels, to other modes of transport progressively. Digital modeling, I was speaking of that. That's the famous digital twin. So what is the problem here? The problem is that, as a lot of things in railway, as I always say, each nation in railway is made of genius. I mean, they have developed in each country incredible things all over the years. The problem is that these things are different. And believe me, they did exactly the same for digital modeling. Not at the level of countries, but at the level of different organisms. So think in digital modeling as a language. And imagine, I'm speaking English today in France, which is always funny because I'm French, as it was said. In English, in German, in Czech. So digital modeling is exactly the same. You have different languages. And the problem is, at the end of the day, if somebody has developed something in a language and another one in another language, you are incapable to regroup them. Or it's a nightmare to regroup them. So clearly, we have to go for a global, what we call conceptual data model, which is a unique or a convergent interoperability between different modeling existing today. Because again, the idea is not to put in the dustbin, as I like to say, the things that have been invested for the last 20 years, but trying to regroup them and to take the benefit of what is existing with a minimum of problems. And clearly, that's the objective. That's typically what we are working in UIC today with two initiatives which are called Railway System Model, which is a conceptual data model regrouping different existing modeling that digital twins, and also a global ontology. It's a bit complex. It's the things of modeling. It's what we call the ontology of rail, which is permitting to compare all these systems together. The objective is what? At the end of the day, is to have a global system a global describing system for all the aspects and all the dimensions of the railway. This is with that you will have the management of your asset. That's with that you will be capable to manage a project and to make it evolve, to have an informatic description of the thing and to give it to another provider, to another company, to everybody can understand the thing. Okay, so today it's absolutely not the situation, but we have this ambition on working on that, and this is that will be a very key project embedded in Shift to Rail next generation, and so we will bring all what we have, because that's the vocation also of UIC. What we are doing is for the railway, so if it is useful for the railway, we'll bring in to Shift to Rail and participate to the thing in a complete transparency, because there is no atmosphere of competition here. Or if there is, we should kill it immediately. Next slide, please. So, for example, we spoke of that on different aspects, so I wanted to have this famous V-cycle. We say we have to all to work together, okay. It has to be organized, and the other industry have showed us the way a lot of tens of years ago, which is a famous V-cycle, and that a lot of people know from other industries, okay. And the beauty of this V-cycle is that is telling you where is the collaboration. When you define the user requirements, when you define the concept of operations, it's about the user, it's about the railways. For other users, because it's a B2B business, it's a B2C business in the case of railways. So you start with that. That's typically the kind of things where UIC is positioning, is defining the specification. You have to define what you want to do with the things. After, you need to be more precise. You need what you call I like to call building blocks, common building blocks, or system approach, which is linked to other things that have been done in the same industry or in another industry. And that is where standardization organization have to be the leader for me and for us. After, you have the step of manufacturers. When the standardization is finished, of course, manufacturers and railways are participating in the other approach, in the other phases, but there are some pilots somewhere. It's not the same pilot at the same time. When you are speaking about product development, it's clear that the pilot is the manufacturing industry. And after, you continue with system verification, and you finish with operation and maintenance, and there, you are back with the users. So this V-cycle is very simple concept, which is eternally used by a lot of industries, but at least it shows you that the collaboration is clear. But collaboration doesn't mean bazaar or mess. It means also that you have some responsibility, and you have to take care of who is doing what. For example, a manufacturer cannot do railway requirements, and railway requirements should not develop a product. I take these two examples because these two examples exist. It's not by beauty of the demonstration. It's just because it's existing today still. So we should try to be more clear on these sort of things. Next slide, please. I wanted to finish with a very positive example, because I said things at the same time positive and sometimes that could be perceived as negative, but with a lot of optimism in my mind. So these things negative will become positive at one point of time. And I wanted to finish with something very positive in terms of collaboration. So I'm sorry we are with our partner from Senelec today, but this one is more on HC, which is another important organism of standardization in Europe, as you know. And you have here the global list of specification of the future FRMCS, which is starting to be not a lot future, so we need maybe to change the name, the F, because in some time it will not be future anymore, it will be existing. So you have the list of specification, and this is very important because you see where all the collaboration can happen in that one. It's a real case, it's real documents, it's real work, it's a lot of people behind that, okay? UIC, first column, sorry for that. First column is about specification. 3GPP, international standardization, because in mobility telecom, HC is not sufficient. We need to have a worldwide view, because FRMCS will be a worldwide system, not only for Europe. That's why we need 3GPP. HC, European things, because there are particularities that we will need for Europe. So all these documents are aligned all together. The people working on all these things are speaking together by this time every day, no? More or less, in order to align everything. But one not doing the job of the others, which is very important. After you have some specific system requirement that we put also. We decided all together in this program to put it in the hands of UIC, but with the contribution of manufacturers, of everybody. Okay, ICT 053, which is a European project with all the manufacturers relevant in the terms of telecoms that will produce the test and the products. This slide is on specification, but they are also there. Also, you have at the end the all what is frequency management, because at the end of the day, for communication, you need frequency management. So also you have to partner with this sort of organism. So I wanted to finish with that. This program will be successful as the GSMR has been successful 20 years ago. Probably the technology is the most adopted in a convergent way by the railway in the world, GSMR, which is quite strange, but this is the same GSMR we have in all the country. It is seamless interoperability all over Europe. Not a lot of problem, you don't hear a lot of it, because there is no issue. FMCS will be the same, and the success of that will be by the complementarity of the people. Clearly, it's not UIC doing everything, not at all. It's UIC with other people like ETSI, like manufacturers, and everybody has interest on that and is doing his right job. We have to, I'm pushing a lot for that in UIC and externally, that we take this sort of model and we externalize it to other cases. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Martin. It was another very interesting presentation. I guess that now we are done with the presentations for the first part of this conference. We start with the question and answer session. I would like to see if Gian Osvaldo is still online. He wants to, as the original moderator, wants to say something about what was heard this morning during the different presentations. Gian Osvaldo, are you there? Gian Osvaldo?
Yes, I am here.
Good. We are done with the presentations, and we start with the question and answer session. And we were wondering if you have any comment before we start. Open the question to the floor.
Video, please, Gian Osvaldo.
No, I have no comment. I think that all the presentations were very impressive, and particularly I think that there will be an important role that will be played by the communication between train and ground, and consequently the 5G technology. So this is my view. So if you, Daniele, want to go on, please go on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gian Osvaldo. I had just one comment to say, looking at all the presentation of the morning, and is actually that I'm very happy to see that we have made a very good assessment on where we are and where we want to be. I heard everybody being on tune in terms of targets and what we want to achieve and where we want to go. And I also see that all the stakeholders of the railway that spoke this morning are willing and committed to achieve these targets. And I'm also very happy to see that there is a budget behind that, which is an essential piece of the puzzle. So I would say that we have all the correct ingredients to make an excellent success. And this is what I really do hope. And also just the last one comment is that I think that this type of meetings, this type of presentation, this type of congresses are quite important because there must be an extremely coordination between all the stakeholders in order to make sure that this will be a success at the end of the day. Now, if any one of you would like to pose a question to the speakers or a comment, I think that it would be quite nice to hear also your opinion. Thank you.
Well, maybe one question here, just to see, because you are speaking all about the standards, you're speaking about innovations, you're speaking about a lot of things. You know, we had presentation with the Shift to Rail initiatives. Well, but this is what is happening now. But what's happening next? What do you plan for the future? Are there any new programs? Are there any new subjects that you will take over to start for new research activities and so on?
Okay, I guess that probably this is more a question for the people that are connected via web. Judith, are you there? Do you have a comment on this question, please?
Maybe I can briefly reply from the Commission side.
Hello? Judith, are you there? Oh, Leonardo? Okay, great.
Yeah, no, just a brief reply, and I'm sure Judith and Mavka will complement. In terms of concrete actions, it was mentioned between the lines in my presentation and also by Libor. For example, we have the work on the European DAC delivery program. This is a concrete action to turn what we have in terms of targets, of numerical targets in terms of greenhouse gas reduction, but also in terms of increasing market share of rail, in this case for freight. And we are taking actions to make this thing happen. For example, European DAC delivery program, the work that the sector collectively is doing on digital automatic couplings is one of these initiatives. I'm sure Judith will mention some, or I should say many of the Shift to Rail and Future Europe's Rail project, which are going in this direction. But I think what is essential is that we are turning the policy into concrete actions. And this is true both from the Commission side and, of course, in full cooperation and with the strong support of the sector. So the actions are there for the time being and will be there for the future.
Sì, io infatti ho già fatto il mio discorso e mi sono già collegato.
I guess that you need, Gianosvaldo, just make sure that your microphone is off, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, we can move to the next. Judith, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do, thanks.
Okay, because before I was talking, but it seems that the microphone didn't work. Yeah, so thank you very much, Leonardo, for the introduction. And indeed, so beyond DAC, I would say that also, as it was discussed, so in Shift to Rail, there is going to be a continuation in the innovation pillar on various aspects where standardization and regulatory aspects will be followed up when we are talking about a new traffic management system for the rail, or when we are talking about the ATO, so the autonomous rail operation, that will be also presented by Antonella Trombetta later today. So all these activities will be continued in the Europe's Rail joint undertaking. So as it was said, so taking the bases that were done in Shift to Rail, it will be a continuation in the next program. But in addition, I would say that what is also very important, that there is going to be the system pillar, which is also going to focus on the architectural aspect, looking at the control command signaling plus, so the additional game changers to be added for the signaling part. And in this area, I would also consider significant relevance for the work of standardization and regulation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judith. Can we move on to the next question? If someone else has a question, maybe we can circulate the microphone if someone has a question.
Another way, maybe another question. You explained that the main challenge is going to be for the regional lines, especially for passenger and freight. Everybody speaks about automation, but you know, it's like the modalities, the transport solutions, the drones, all these other ways of transporting freight, parcels, and so on. How is the train going to be connected with drones, for instance? Do you think this is going to happen?
Libor, do you have an answer, or Jean-Martin?
I don't have a straightforward answer for how to connect the train with the drone, but I'm sure that if there will be an opportunity for such I would call it terminal, where you can load the cargo using the drones or vice versa, that's an opportunity. But to be honest, that's not something that we have envisaged so far in the context of what is going to be developed for the framework of the regional lines. I have to be very clear, that was not part of the considerations.
We are connecting the train with the drones, but not for passengers and this sort of things, for maintenance and this sort of technical aspect today. No, that's very nice, but the drone story. But first of all, we should see if it will really exist in other world, because railway maybe we will wait a little bit before doing things like that. I think we don't have to confuse what should be done and what may be done in an incredible future. The freight, first thing is about flexibility of things, better costs, better management, no problem anymore with the driver, sorry to say, but it's an element of the equation. So you have a long list of things we have to organize. DAC, of that, you have a list. So before imagining going to March, but we will go to March one day, we should take this famous list that we have never been capable to solve for the last 30 years. Going to what you described, which is let's say a bad result compared to the year before, to the years before for the freight industry in railway. We have this list, so it's just a question of having a convergence by different people and saying now we tackle that list. And I repeat, and I'm an engineer, and I like physics, like mathematics, like a lot of things. It's not a question of technicality every time. It's not a question of technicality, it's also a question of management, of decision, of governance, of sense of life, and these sort of things. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the message was clear. The interest is there, of course. It will take due time before other bigger important tasks will be solved. If there is any further questions, or otherwise we can close here as it is already 12:25. Okay, so I take my chance to thank all the speakers remotely and in presence here. Really appreciated the importance, the interest, and really the contents that was expressed this morning by all the stakeholders and by all the present. And I thank you all here for participating and listening to us very intensively. Thank you. I guess that now, as if I'm not mistaken, there is a lunch organized outside, something like that, Paolo, correct? Okay, yes.
Daniele, excuse
Yes.
me. I want to take the chance to say really that I regret not to be in Toulouse, and also not to have the possibility to stay in person. And particularly I want to say my best wishes for people which were speaking in this important panel, and that are all my friends, because Leonardo, Judith, Carlo, Mr. Citroën, and Lieber Lockman, I know them from a long time, and so I send my best wishes to them, and I say thanks to them for their participation.
Thank you, Gian Osvaldo. Knowing you, we know that you are missing being here. It's very clear to us. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you again. Okay, we can close here. And Gian Osvaldo, ciao.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniele. I think we can close this first panel of this morning. So, well, we give you an appointment at 1:30 after the lunch break. Please be here on time, and we'll keep going with the panel 2 for Sustainable Transport and Green Deal. Thank you.
Aussi puissant que son accent. Pour moi, ça incarne la ruralité avec toute sa beauté et toute son authenticité. Toulouse est une ville à la campagne. C'est très fort, c'est très présent dans Toulouse, cette campagne environnante qui pénètre dans la ville. Par plusieurs moyens, par les bois qui entourent la ville, mais aussi par les réseaux fluviaux. On a la Garonne, bien sûr, il y a le canal de Midi, on a le canal de Brienne, toutes ces voies d'eau qui font que la ville respire, elle est comme irriguée. Midi-Pyrénées est un grenier immense et Toulouse en est un peu la vitrine. Pour moi, restaurateur, c'est un terrain de jeu fabuleux finalement. J'ai pas besoin d'aller très très loin, j'ai tout sur place. On a la truffe, on a le foie gras, on a la laiton de l'Aveyron, tous ces produits on les trouve ici. Ils viennent, ils arrivent naturellement. Et Toulouse est une vraie porte d'entrée sur de nombreux territoires. D'un point de vue architectural, le Capitole, c'est fort, c'est emblématique, c'est la mairie, mais c'est un peu le joyau aussi de la ville. Quand le soleil vient lécher la façade du Capitole, qui est tournée vers l'ouest, il y a ce rose qui devient évident. On est dans la ville rose. Sincèrement, c'est impressionnant, c'est majestueux. Il y a des lieux qui sont vraiment très forts. Moi, le cloître des Jacobins, bien sûr, c'est un cloître et il y a un magnifique festival de piano, la piano jacobin, c'est magistral. Mais Toulouse a aussi une spécificité, elle a plein d'hôtels particuliers avec des cours intérieures. Il y a l'hôtel d'Acesa qui est un des plus beaux, des plus connus, mais il y en a une cinquantaine, je crois. Aujourd'hui, la force de Toulouse, c'est une force, c'est cette industrie qui est un des joyaux de l'industrie européenne, c'est Airbus. Pour moi, c'est le poumon de la ville, l'Airbus. Quand on est adopté par la ville, on doit adopter le rugby. Quand Toulouse gagne un bouclier de Brennus, c'est, même s'ils en ont gagné des dizaines, j'ai envie de dire, c'est un événement important. Et quand les joueurs, en place du Capitole, brandissent le Brennus, c'est toute la ville qui est présente. Et franchement, moi, ça continue à me filer la chair de poule. C'est une telle fierté. C'est un vrai besoin de faire la fête ici. C'est un vrai besoin de sortir, de se retrouver autour de quelques tapas et avec un petit verre de fronton. La nuit passe et il fait beau. À Toulouse, il y a toujours eu une école autour de la musique et du chant. C'est très présent. L'orchestre du Capitole, ça fait partie des richesses de la ville. C'est un orchestre qui brille depuis des années. Aujourd'hui, on a la chance d'avoir un chef comme Tougan Sokiev, qui est un jeune chef extrêmement prestigieux et brillant. Finalement, c'est une ville où on vit sereinement, on y mange bien, on s'amuse, on fait la fête, on écoute la musique. C'est ça, Toulouse.